So today, guys, I want to talk about something that is secretly sabotaging each and every one of you. And that is, hey, welcome to Wow Words of Wisdom. This is the podcast where we talk about all things mindset, all things confidence, and taking action, even when it feels scary. I'm Sharon McCaffrey, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it's this: your mindset shapes everything. The way you think, the way you show up, the way you go after what you really want, and it all starts in your head. So if you've ever felt stuck, doubted yourself, or wondered if you're really capable of more, you're in the right place. Each week, let's break through those mental blocks, shift your perspective, and start making things happen. So today, guys, in this episode, I wanna talk about impatience. I want to talk about it's something, I suppose, that I'm very personally familiar with. I'm the person that would like to skip steps. If I buy something that has instructions, I never look at the instructions because I'll figure it out, quicker on my own. I'm the one that stands at the microwave waiting impatiently. I once microwaved a cake, but I'll talk about that later on. But that was because of impatience. So I want you to understand, I'm not here to preach. I suppose I'm here a little bit more to laugh through the chaos with you while we try and figure this out together. Why we can be so impatient, and what, I suppose what it means for us, but how I suppose it can be. I suppose it's a bit of a dream killer in disguise. I think impatience dresses up as ambition, but what it's actually doing is it's secretly sabotaging our consistency. So the first part I wanted to talk to you about is my relationship with impatience and that whole I want it now, because I'm pretty sure how I feel about it, there's probably lots of you out there identify, in the same way. And I'm that person who, it checks the oven every few minutes. I'm fully expecting the cake to be baked within 5 or 10 minutes. And I said earlier, I once microwaved a carrot cake. I kid you not, I made the cake. I was so excited about it. Put it in the oven. It didn't seem to be cooking quick enough, and then I decided that I was going to stick it in the microwave. Well, needless to say, it didn't turn out the way that I needed it to. It's a little bit like sometimes we'll order something online and then we start tracking it immediately, wondering where it is. I'll often notice myself on YouTube or something, when the ad comes up and I'm going where's the skip button, and I want to get through it really, really quickly. Or maybe I've been guilty of this in the past too. You get into this fitness buzz and you're a day or two in. You've done a few workouts and then you're annoyed that you don't have a six pack by the end of the week, and so we're all guilty of it. And a very funny story: recently, we planted new trees outside the house. Okay, and every day I'm looking at them to see how they grow. We planted Leylandi trees because Leylandi trees apparently grow really quickly, but they're obviously not growing as quick as I would like them to grow. So I took a photo of them the other day of like the the height that they were at, and then I went back and checked a few days later to see had it grown beyond that point and whatever. And every day I'm looking at them. So look at guys, I feel I've always been an action taker, and I think, and there's probably lots of you out there like that, and I think that's amazing. But I think then what can happen is, you start expecting everything to move at the speed of your decision. I always say the downside of ambition is frustration, because people who are ambitious expect things to happen straight away. We don't just want to grow, we want the results yesterday. And I need you to understand, this shows up, impatience shows up. It's not just in business, it's in relationships. It even shows up in your self-development. Maybe you start journaling and it's in your 2 days into journaling and you're wondering why, things haven't changed, or you're not suddenly really positive, or you start writing, I'm attracting abundance, and then you're wondering where the abundance is. So, and I think particularly now we're in a society where everything is so fast, right? And speed is addictive, but I think what you need to understand is growth is not fast, and success can be boring because it takes time, and that's why most people give up, because they don't have the patience to wait until they get good. And I suppose the thing I want you to think about, like, is there something in your life that you're maybe trying to microwave, but it actually needs to marinate? And as I said, like, I think a lot of it comes from, we're just in this society now where, like, we look at social media and, you know, you see somebody, like, they talk about the overnight success, but they don't show the hard work that went into to get there. What I want to talk to you about is like the psychology behind impatience, because I'm one of these people, I need to understand why I behave in a certain way or do a certain thing, because until I understand why, I find it hard to correct. So your brain is a little bit like a drama queen, like, who loves certainty, but patience doesn't give us that certainty, because we have to wait. Okay. And our brains are hardwired to seek reward, but also to avoid discomfort. But as human beings, like, we crave comfort. So that's why, like, you'll often see people who are, they want to start that business or they want to change career, but then they never actually do it because it feels uncomfortable. Impatience is often a coping mechanism. It's a way that we try to control the outcomes. I want you to imagine your brain like as if it's like a puppy, right? It wants treats and it wants excitement now. And if you don't train it, like, it's going to chew your good shoes or chew your handbag and, run around, like peeing wherever it wants. So, and that's what our brains are like unless we train them properly. And dopamine, that's the dopamine is the reward chemical, and it's that quick hit that we crave when something happens fast. So instant gratification is chemically satisfying, but it's also a trap because then we want more of it. The thing I think I've become more mindful of as I've got older is like how society actually feeds into, I suppose, this impatience. So, like, you go online, you see, 30-second reel or next day results or, drop a dress size in a week. And, we get hooked in by all of these reels and, ads and different things, but it's all feeds into this impatience. I think what I've learned over the years is that patience is actually where character is built, but it's also where most people quit because it's not sexy and it's not shareable on Instagram or TikTok. And I always talk about that valley of despair when we're going through and change, when you're in that dip of, trying to be really, really patient, but that's where the challenges are. That's not the fun part, and it's not exciting, and it's not sexy, and nobody wants to see that. They want to see, like, you're always interested in the hero story, the hero at the end, not like, not the hardship that they had to go through in the middle. So I suppose what I want to reassure you here today is that, you're not, you're not being lazy. You're just stuck in this cycle of needing progress to feel safe. Most of the time, if it's not happening fast enough, maybe you're meant to build something that lasts. So I always think about the story of the three little pigs. And, I think about, like, the little pig that built the house of straw, it fell down quickly. The little pig that built the house of wood, it blew down quickly, but not as quick as the straw. And then the one of bricks, then, it was the one that lasted. But it took longer to build the one of bricks. And that's a little bit like with patience and our mindsets and stuff. It's, if you want to build something worthwhile, it's going to take time. How does impatience hold you back? And somebody once said to me, about a year ago or whatever, they said to me, like, like, being impatient is actually costing you money. And he says, and if you think about it that way, so it's not just annoying being impatient, it's actually expensive. So if you try to equate it to money, it'll make you maybe wake up a little bit faster. So, and I suppose I want to break this down into a little bit of, like, real talk. If you rush something, a lot of the times you end up doing it twice. And, like, if you, let's say, maybe panic launch something and because you're tired of waiting, it can end up backfiring. Or maybe you abandon a plan too soon because you didn't get the results quick enough. And if you watch anyone or follow anyone that's at any level of success, whether that's health, business, relationships, whatever, they've had to work at it for a period of time, and the results then have come down the line, not in that immediate gratification. And, you know, the way I look at it about like is if you're quitting something too early, it's a little bit like, so it's a little bit like me with my trees, isn't it? It's like, you know, you don't like plant a seed and then dig it up a week later because it hasn't blossomed yet. Because if you do, then like, well, obviously your garden's not going to turn out the way that you want. Nobody gets pregnant today and then expects a baby tomorrow. Like it takes 9 months. Okay. So it takes time to develop and grow anything, and anything worth doing, like, takes time. But what can happen when you're impatient, it's like this decision fatigue. You keep changing your mind, you keep changing your strategy, or you keep changing your coach, not because it's wrong, but because it's not quick. Okay. And I want you to think about like um a personal trainer. All right. Like, you'd often hear like somebody will hire a personal trainer, and then, like a few weeks later they're not working with them anymore and they're blaming the personal trainer. But they're blaming the personal trainer simply because their expectations of how quick they were going to get the results, it was taking longer. So now let's blame the personal trainer rather than actually having a little bit of patience and putting the required effort in. I think, the other thing that we can end up doing as a result of being impatient, we can end up attracting the wrong things when you're desperate, like to get there. Like, you can end up attracting the wrong clients, the wrong partners, the wrong choices. Like, I know some women who actually rushed into the wrong relationships simply just because they wanted a baby. Okay. And like I know like there's been times in my business where I've been very, very close to walking away from it. And I'm glad that I've had the self-awareness to realize how impatience can be sabotaging me, because the only reason that I didn't walk away from it is because I understood that I wanted to walk away because it wasn't getting the results quick enough, and that I was going to have to see it through to the end, and be patient about it. Um, and I need you to know that, like, every time you've let impatience win, you'll end up paying in time, money, energy, or progress. Okay. But when you trust the process, even when it feels slow, things will eventually click and you'll eventually get there. And then I want you to think about like, reframing the weight, right? And start looking at like, I try to look at like patience, that it isn't passive, it's powerful. So what I've done, particularly for me, like in business and stuff like that, anytime I've been going through a challenge and I've, felt sorry for myself, or I'm comparing myself to, other business owners and saying like, oh, but why is this not happening to them or whatever? And I just keep saying to myself, what is this teaching me? So I've started now to embrace the challenge and the time that it's taken to get through that challenge. I'm looking at what skill sets is it teaching me. And I'm looking at it now in a positive, because in my head I'm going like, this is actually setting me up for a bigger, better future, because I'm learning skill sets here now while I'm in this valley of despair, and learning to be patient is setting me up for the future. So try to think about it more like you're not waiting to succeed, you're actually preparing to handle what's coming in the future, which means that you're going to have a bigger, brighter future. Try to think about like, what habits are you building, while you're being patient? What basics are you mastering? What are you learning, so that you need to hold on to it for when the success actually arrives. And look, at the one thing I can 100% guarantee is like, it will pay off. Being patient pays off. And I know it's hard at that moment in time when when you just want the results now, but it eventually will set you up for something much, much, much bigger down the line. Okay. Like, and to give you a little bit of a funny personal story. So before I met Stephen, and I know he probably listened to this podcast and he cringed when he hears it, it's like, I've been single for a number of years, and I had played around with the world of internet dating. I've been on quite a few dates, and every time like I would combine and just think like, no, that's not the one. And it's like, there were times when I had friends and stuff said to me like, "Oh, Sharon, are you sure your list is not too long? And it's like, in your checklist, and maybe you need to settle for something less." And I'm going like, "No, I know what it is that I'm looking for." But then I started to think like, maybe they're not out there. Maybe my friends are right. Maybe I need to give up on this whole thing of, waiting to meet them one and just like, well, it'll do kind of thing. And there were a few times when it was a day and thought like, but anyway, cut a long story short, after 4 years, I met Stephen. The point I suppose I'm trying to make is that I was very, very tempted to give up on, finding the right relationship to settle for a relationship. But there was something in my brain kept saying to me like, no, don't give up, don't give up. It'll be worth it in the end. And like it has been so worth it. And I say this to friends of mine a lot who are single now. I say, like, don't give up. Don't just settle for something. It may feel uncomfortable now and you may feel impatient and you want to meet that person with them, but just, don't give up. The right person is out there for you. But it's the same in business. It's the same in anything that you do. And I do believe like, these challenges or these little quick wins that are put in front of us are like little tests to see, are we going to give in and stuff. And I just felt like, well, I'm not giving in. So, but it paid off in the end. And it's a little bit like, again, it's a little bit like, baking the cake. If you open the oven too early, it's going to flop. But if you wait, you'll get the real deal and it'll be amazing. Here's a few truth bombs, guys. Like, if you got everything you wanted today, you probably wouldn't have the capacity to handle it or to hold on to it. Don't look at the wait as punishment. I think a lot of the time we look at when we're waiting for something or having to be patient, it's, oh, why am I being punished? It's not punishment. It's actually protection because it's setting you up for the person that you need to be. It's getting you ready. And I want you to think about like, what are the challenges or times in your life that think about where you were being really, really impatient, but by waiting out, it actually served you better in the long run. Question is, how do you practice patience in real life? I suppose it's easier said than done, and it's not just like some mindset fluff. It's what I wanted to do is try to teach you how to give me some tips on how to calm that, I suppose, inner toddler. All right. So, a few little things that, as I said, like, what you can do is you can reframe it. So, like when that urge to rush in hits, say out loud to yourself, this is not Amazon Prime, or maybe have little sticky notes around that says like slow down, fast doesn't mean better. And as I said, like one of the things I do is like I celebrate the progress. So maybe that's that you have like a little habit tracker. My go-to always is like ticking things off a list. I suppose that's more about like showing up when there's nobody clapping. So every month I have little monthly intentions. I have big like long-term goals. And I'm not going to run a podcast here now on goals, and maybe I'll do it another day. But if you can think of like where you want to be in a year and 5 years time and then bring everything back to now. So, I think like even in terms of my health and my fitness, I break that down into how many times I'm going to go to the gym this week or go to a Pilates class or whatever. And then every time I do it, I tick it off. So it's like a little win. It's a little clap for myself and it makes me feel good and it gives me that dopamine hit. But I haven't hit the big longer term goal yet, but this kind of keeps me on track so that I don't end up getting stuck in the mode of being impatient because I don't have a six pack in 6 weeks. If I'm going to the gym on the days that I said I was going to the gym, well, the chances of that happening now are better, but I'm also getting that reward, that little reward hit as well. On that thing about goals, I want you to think about like, you do want to think about the long-term goals. So don't just think about what you can do in 3 months. Think about what you can do in 3 years and then feed in throughout the year, the 3 months into the 3 years. You want to create this process with your goals you're not just thinking of the outcome. It's like, because if you focus on the result all the time, like sometimes the result can be so far away that it's very easy to get frustrated. So let's say you want to make a 6-figure income and maybe you've set up a business and you want it to be a 6-figure business, but you've only made $1,000 this week. It's like, or this month or whatever, it's like, it can be very hard to see how you're ever going to get to that 6-figure income. So you want to break it down. It's the same way, like if you go to PT or fitness or anything, they say like lose 2 pounds a week, not like, don't think about like the stone that you need to lose, because as I said, it can be so far away that it can be motivating. So what I do, as I said, I have like a 5-year goal, I have a yearly goal, I have quarterly goals, but then I also have monthly goals too. And the monthly goals are the ones where I get to tick stuff off all the time. And then every so often, I'll get a tick off a monthly goal or part of a yearly goal. And it just helps break it down, but it gives me small wins along the way. I think what that taught me to do is to kind of anchor more into the progress rather than the perfection. So I started celebrating the reps, not just the results. I think what I need you to understand is that patience doesn't mean that there's a lack of ambition. It just means sustainable success. So it's not about taking your foot off the gas. It's about not trying to drive at 90 miles per hour on a dirt track. So to finish up, guys, I just want to touch on, like, don't let impatience rob you. If there's one thing, I want you to take away from today, it's this: your dreams need time, not pressure. If I can learn to sit with the discomfort of waiting, and I'm a very, very impatient person, trust me, you can too. Try to just think your impatience is actually, it's costing you progress. Okay. But it's your consistency. That's what's going to compound over time. So guys, I would love to invite you to hold on to this vision. And even when results are taking their time and maybe they're not showing up as quickly as you want to. So guys, okay, thank you very much for listening today. I would love, if any of you want to start a conversation with me on Instagram or on the podcast here, just drop the word patience and tell me where it is that you've been, trying to rush the most, and what you've learned from today that's going to help you to slow down. So please share this podcast wherever you listen to it. We're now on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. So hopefully you've got some words of wisdom from today that will help you in the future. And that's my words of wisdom for today's episode of Wow. I hope this gives you something to think about, because remember, your mindset shapes your reality. The way you choose to think today will impact what you create tomorrow. If you love this episode, let me know. Share it, tag me, or send me a message. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Catch you next time.